In 2004, three paleontologists discovered a dinosaur fossil that looked like this in the Hell Creek Formation in the United States. This fossil was then named Dracorex hagwardtsia, which was taken from the Latin Dracorex, which means dragon king. While the word hagwardtsia refers to the school of magic in the Harry Potter story. But don't imagine these dinosaurs have wings, can fly, let alone spit fire. Instead, they are herbivorous dinosaurs that are currently considered a synonym for Pachycephalosaurus, where the Dracorex fossil is considered to represent a young Pachycephalosaurus. But speaking of dragons, did these animals ever live in the past? Because they are known in various cultures in various parts of the world. What do you imagine if you hear the word dragon, a winged animal with fire breath? That's probably the most popular image of dragons today. But actually, depending on the culture, the depiction of dragons varies. Early records of dragons can be traced back to ancient civilizations in Mesopotamia. In Mesopotamian culture, dragons often appear in the mythology and beliefs of the people living in this ancient region, including the Sumerian civilization, Babylonia, Assyria, and Akkadian civilizations. However, dragons are found in many cultures and have existed since ancient civilizations. However, the dragons we know today are dominated by cultures that are usually divided into two, namely Western dragons and Eastern dragons, where the two are often distinguished like two opposites. In most Eastern cultures, particularly China, dragons are often depicted as long and slender creatures, resembling large snakes with legs. They usually have scaly bodies like fish, claws like eagles, and antlers like deer. These dragons generally lack wings, but can still fly, demonstrating their supernatural abilities. Here, the dragon becomes a sacred, majestic, and revered symbol. This kind of culture can also be found in other countries in Southeast Asia. In contrast to the Eastern culture, in the West, dragons are depicted in the opposite way. Here, dragons are depicted as evil, voracious, fiery, and sometimes even demonic. They often appear as antagonistic creatures in folklore that must be defeated by knights. In Western culture, dragons are usually depicted as large and burly creatures, resembling giant reptiles in appearance with broad wings, stumpy legs with claws, and large mouths full of teeth, and can spit fire. However, whether holy dragons or evil dragons, these are just general descriptions of how dragons are depicted in both cultures. Of course, every culture both in the West and the East may have different images of dragons between cultures. Whatever the image of dragons in the culture, these animals are considered to be myths or mythology that developed among the people. But why is it found in many cultures? What caused humans to create such mythological animals? Does it have anything to do with real animals? Let's look back at those dinosaur fossils we mentioned earlier. Now imagine the Chinese during the Han Dynasty, or the people from ancient Mesopotamia finding dinosaur fossils. Science at that time was not as developed as it is today, which could lead to misinterpretations of these fossils. When ancient people found large bones that didn't match the size of animals they were familiar with, they might conclude that they were the remains of giant creatures like dragons, as historian Adrienne Mayer once described in her book. This is a photo of dragon bones. At least that's what the ancients who lived around Wawel Cathedral in Poland believed. There are 3 bones hanging above the entrance, one of which is quite large. There is a legend that a long time ago, in a cave at the bottom of Wawel Hill, there lived a dragon. A very scary dragon that demanded to be fed cattle, or else it would take revenge on the townspeople. The dragon became a terror to the townspeople. Many knights tried to conquer it, but to no avail. Long story short, the dragon was later defeated with a bait filled with sulfur. The bone hanging near the entrance of Wawel Cathedral is considered a protector against evil forces, and many people say it is the dragon's bone. According to legend, when the chain breaks and the bones fall, the world will end. But after research and identification, it turned out that they were probably whale, rhino, and mammoth bones. The Polish story is just one of the many misinterpretations of bones thought to be dragon bones. In another area of Europe, Klagenfurt in Austria in 1335, when an ancient rhinoceros skull was found, it was even considered a dragon skull. In Greek culture, one of them is the story of the monster of Troy. According to researchers, the imagination of the mythological creature was influenced by the fossilized Samotherium, an ancient giraffe from the Miocene to Pliocene, which was, of course, exaggerated. In China, which is a place where dragons are quite popular as symbols, and of course here is also a place where large ancient animal fossils are quite common. So perhaps it's no wonder those ancient animal fossils are often thought to be dragon bones. In China, there is something called long gu, which means dragon bones, and long chai, which means dragon teeth. They are commonly used for traditional medicine, where they are actually ancient animal fossils. For example, in 1935, a paleontologist was surprised to find some strange teeth in drugstores in Hong Kong and in southern China. The specimens were being sold as so-called dragon teeth, which would be ground up for use in traditional medicine. As a researcher, he knew full well that the teeth resembled those of an ape, but were quite large. It is now known that the tooth belonged to the ancient great ape Gigantopithecus, which lived during the Pleistocene. Depictions of mythological animals caused by misinterpretations of ancient animals are common in many parts of the world, and this is not just limited to dragons. For example, megalodon teeth were once seen by D'Angelo as petrified wild loofahs. In Siberia, mammoths are believed to be creatures that live underground. Or, among Native Americans, there is a mythology of lightning creatures associated with natural phenomena such as thunder and storms, which was actually inspired by the fossilized Brontothere, an ancient relative of the rhinoceros that lived during the Eocene to Oligocene. It might make sense for ancient animal fossils in general to be one of the reasons for the rise of dragon mythology. However, it seems that this is not the only factor, and we certainly need to consider other factors. Now, take a look around your neighborhood. What wild animals threaten us? It may not be the case for the majority of humans today. But if we think about our ancestors, the threat of wild animals must have been much more real. One hypothesis about the origin of dragon mythology is that it is an instinctive reaction from our ancestors to wild animals that are indeed dangerous to humans, which is then flavored with imagination, where dragons are often depicted as having combined features of various wild animals. In addition, dragons are also often depicted living in places such as caves, mountains, haunted forests, seas, and puddles, which are dangerous places for our ancestors. This hypothesis has been described by David Jones in his book, which is a popular book when it comes to the origin of dragons. Another hypothesis about the origin of dragons may be a speculative response to a natural phenomenon that occurred like many other mythologies. For those of us who live in this day and age, natural phenomena such as rainbows, rain, storms, and so on can be explained scientifically. Even since elementary school, we have been taught how these phenomena occur. But in the days of our ancestors, when scientific knowledge was not yet developed, mythology became a way to explain these things, including the creation of myths about dragons. Mythological animals like dragons have attracted scientists to study them. Keep in mind, what is described in this video may only give a general idea, but each culture may have different cases related to dragons. While dragons in folklore are just myths, there are also some modern animals that are nicknamed, in quotes, dragons. So if this is the case, does this mean dragons really exist? The answer depends on how we define dragons themselves. That's all for this video, thank you.